CDBG funds that were made available to the Small Business Stabilization Program to make the final determination on overall funds totals available. Qualifying small businesses via the local government were eligible to submit grant requests for up to $25,000. The state issued the grants on a rolling basis and made determinations on fund availability and access to this capital as applications were processed. Chatham Cafe was awarded $25,000 grant under the state of Illinois' determination process. Item 2 is activities to be undertaken with the grant funding. The program component made funds available for 60 days of verifiable working capital up to a grant ceiling of $25,000 and is available for businesses that employ 50 people or less. These funds were used by the Chatham Cafe to assist with that working capital. And item 3, the Chatham Cafe used the grant funding to support its working capital needs and was able to remain open for the required 60 days from the date of the award of the grant assistance. Are there any questions or comments for the public hearing for Chatham Cafe? Hearing none, we will close this CDBG closeout public hearing. It took longer for you guys to all sign in.
Mm-hmm. There's a sign-in sheet going around. Well,
I'm still not done yet. It took me longer to do that.
I did start the video, so careful what you say. Hand it to me, I'll give it over to Dan. Thank you.
I have the text of this. I'll email it to you. You can just.
Perfect. I'm trying to write stuff down, and I'm like, better have something.
You need us too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these are.
Too fast.
This is the survey that we did last time. And, this is the survey we did last time.
Just the
And they thought it would be helpful if there was a separate police one. They could understand the police force separately.
Are we sending them out again?
Sorry?
Are we sending them out again?
Yeah, I think that Brad wants to do them regularly. Like, I don't know if it's 6 months or once a year. I don't know how long it's been. It feels like it hasn't been that long, but I think he wants to do them on a recurring basis. Yeah.
Well, I've gone several years of this, and I think it's very informative, especially for new trustees also.
Look at it and see what the dates are.
22nd or 23rd to the 25th of September.
September, this
You
far
don't
enough
have to
away.
be new. It's good. Just there's always something new
Yeah.
there to.
And meet trustees from across the state and that kind of share ideas.
Did you just walk in? You'll be fine. We had to do a hearing that required a sign-in sheet.
Okay.
You missed it.
Were you ever hearing? That was
That's it.
fast.
That was it,
Well,
yeah.
we were just closing out the.
Yeah, closing out a block grant. Did you see they bought the McDonald's on MacArthur and they're going to open one there?
We went there on Sunday.
Okay, so the
They were-
cafe here in town. Oh, I saw you in the parking lot.
Yeah, I
The waitress was talking about that, and they don't know what they're going to name it yet, but yeah, it's at that McDonald's.
That's
They're gonna
exciting.
name it. It is-
well over an hour.
And I love them. I really do.
Yeah.
It is my favorite breakfast place.
Great breakfast.
Because I sat there and listened. Okay, we don't have a motion.
There used to be,
Because Gerber was like.
but I don't remember the name of it. There used to be there
Yeah.
where Godfather's is.
Since it wasn't on the agenda,
was kind
it's
of
a
similar.
legitimate view.
And
And you know that.
Well, but that's one of those things
Hey,
where I was
Darlene,
trying to figure out.
You remember
ins and outs.
that breakfast place used to be where
Yeah,
Godfather's
okay.
is?
Well, then Bernie.
Oh, it was Four
I'm like,
Seasons.
listen.
Which was actually true, legitimate.
You remember that restaurant called Four Seasons?
What was the
right
other
there
thing?
where
Yeah, your thing,
Godfather's
because
is?
you jumped in and
Beside,
said, well, it's like,
Checkpoint.
it's on nominations, but then you're having discussion. So I'm like, okay, he wants to make note that.
But yeah, that was one of our first
I
breakfast.
didn't get the full.
Long
I don't know
time
the background. and all
being
that
here.
stuff. So I was just
Didn't
like,
we have a chain? Wasn't there a chain?
rewind,
There
play,
were
rewind.
I know.
And then on
It
one
was
of them,
like
Trustee Cheryl
buffet.
was she.
A long.
No, by Mario.
Yeah, it was.
There wasn't ever a buffet.
I was
place
just
there.
like, this
Well, there's been several different restaurants.
Yeah.
seriously, I
Started out
got
as Duggar's.
I don't have to do it
Yeah.
here because executive.
And then, well, they had
I was at home.
holiday brunches.
I had my computer,
like Mother's
I had
Day and
my phone,
Father's Day.
I
And,
had my iPad, and I'm
other than that,
sitting
it's
here
more like
trying
a
to-
sports bar kind of.
looking at my
Their
notes.
prices were high.
Yeah, that was
Now it's been a million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good times. Yeah, just for such a brief meeting.
Oh yeah.
Adam
Well,
Cafe
when I
people
started it,
want
because I had my minutes,
Arthur McDonald's.
and I was like, I knew the thing with proclamation was going to. So I even said to Dave at one point.
I think they do good. I mean, I've eaten at the Chatham place and never had one.
Lenny or whatever.
Yeah, no, but this is
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like,
this is based on true events. So
I
Under house.
I had that, and I'm like, okay. And then I came back to it
There is. But the parking lots are all.
on Sunday.
Yeah.
Whatever day it was that I was.
It's unbelievable.
Well, when I came tonight, I'm like, what did we do? What did I do
I thought,
now?
how many people applied for that, you
I
know?
know. Yeah.
It's like, and then.
I'll be honest with you. I'm finding these.
Well, I just never.
When I said parking lot,
Oh, yeah.
there've been things before where they've
You
had
been over there?
That's not good.
It's a good.
Yeah, I know several, I mean, almost everybody knows me. Two or three or four or five
It's
times.
nice over there. It's a nice little area.
Yeah, this makes a difference so much.
Yeah.
So much.
We were throwing a party for the Hall Chatham School District. So it was an after-school party for teachers and the staff.
Was that today?
That's what's going on in the back there. Oh, I see.
Oh, is that when they raffle off the wagon of adult
That
bottled beverages?
No, not at that one. We didn't do that. But we just gave them appetizers and drinks.
Oh, good.
And just let them sit out there and talk. And they had not seen each other and be able to enjoy each other.
Yeah.
So we had about 100 teachers showed up. So it was,
Wow.
it was a nice turnout. It was a nice turnout.
Always very supportive, that's what makes it so.
Yeah. Well, they're just, the teachers have went through a rough year. It was nice to be able to
Yeah.
tell them thank you and then be able to have some time and sit around the table and actually talk to their peers.
I can't imagine what kids have gone through.
Yeah. And they just have to keep changing. Hopefully it'll go back to normal. Or as much normal as they can. Yeah, whatever's normal.
Yeah.
and then and up there
It'll be interesting.
you can hear. And sometimes depending on how well the person
Who's in the? Oh, it's Wes.
these things.
Yeah, I tried to get some of the teachers to show up over here at 6, so that
It was
that
Wes.
could
I
be
wondered who. I forgot he got a minute.
Teachers, what? So what?
I tried to get some of the teachers to show up here at 6.
Oh.
just to heckle.
I was trying to pull it out.
Yeah. Like, some of the mates are like 6, like, oh, okay, like, just come on over. Do you have the gallery? I can heckle. I spent a long time trying to get people to show up to meetings. And, you know, they just don't want to show up. I like to think people watch the video.
I look at the count sometimes.
Yeah.
Probably pretty good if they don't. Not that I don't want them, just that we're
And I don't have to do
not doing anything crazy.
once it's out there.
What I've seen is that people show up and pay free.
And I did that because
It's never just to heckle. Just heckle us a little bit.
yes, this gentleman needs to sign back here.
Of course he did.
The attorney.
I got a nice picture of you and my wife.
Thought he walked in.
I got it on my phone too. Is she still over there? Or did she leave?
No, kids had a swim meet. Well, so she was leaving there to take them.
gotta make it official.
She's running all around.
Yeah, it's still going on over there.
Yeah, oh, I could tell. Yeah, because a few of these,
And they're not going anywhere.
a few of your party goers are parking in our spots.
Yeah,
I
they're
know
not
who they
going
are.
anywhere. They're not going anywhere. They're camped out.
I'm
They
sure.
got there at 3 and they're still camped out.
I'm sure they are.
They're taking the food and drinks up, but they're still camping. They're like, come on out. Fletcher wants to bring up the golf carts again.
So I told him to come on over at 6 o'clock. And then get
Yeah,
back to us.
yeah. Now would be a good time for
So-
him to do that after
So if
this
they,
afternoon.
so if we have about 10 or 15 fill the gallery, that's cause that's all. Come on
Well,
over
they
and
better
heckle
hurry
us.
up.
Yeah, come
Yeah.
heckle us.
I will talk golf carts anytime.
Yeah. That
Bring
was,
those people along.
yeah, they threatened to Paul that we want to talk about golf
How
carts.
is everything?
They said what?
Tell Paul we want to talk about golf carts. So we'll, they may come heckle us.
Because I've had other people approach me lately and say, hey, you know what?
He's a lost.
These other areas that have 111,
summer associate.
Route 3, you know, I was just in Grafton today and they had golf carts in the road. So,
Is he interested in?
you know, and Route 3 is a lot busier than, I mean, or just as busy as Route 4 is.
He does want
Hey, don't you act? You think you're gonna do something productive, like be a storeroom clerk?
I don't know if
There's a
very, very popular.
Hey, speaking of ridiculous things, you have those proclamations.
He's so personal.
I
Like, he
know, that's
stands
I'm glad you reminded
outside
me.
And he talks to everybody.
Those are good segues. Yeah, I did that. Speaking of, that was nice.
Everybody loves it.
I got some
I don't know where we left that though. Did we leave that with Greg? Did
Thursday. Of course, we're in good shape.
We need to complain.
What's that?
we leave the golf cart thing with you?
Ordinance, the golf cart ordinance that we were talking about.
Uh-oh.
We'll talk about it later.
We can talk about it later. We have
We have
an
a
agenda to
meeting.
cover.
Yes,
We have an agenda to
Okay.
cover.
We'll talk after.
You guys are breaking OMA.
there's some
You
like.
guys are breaking OMA.
He's not even listening to you. I think we're actually on Circuit Live now, aren't
We are, yep.
We haven't recorded the whole time.
Want me to read them
we?
to you?
Okay.
Look, you made his day. Like he
We have talked.
he loved it. He just laughed so hard.
You know, you
He
should.
complained that their whole family loved it. It was like, I'm glad this was great for you.
Yes.
Yes, I texted him the picture. He loved him and his whole family loved the picture. Yeah. So I could feel happy for that.
There for a while. He was in here.
That was well deserved.
He was wearing the
It's really
on it. It had like a
Big Mouth's fault over here, because if he
I'm
hadn't,
just trying to think if he was,
he hadn't
I
started,
was there, but obviously.
Which is funny because ahead of time he was not going to be Big Mouth about it. It was going to be the Big Mouth afterwards. That's
Well, I'm 37, so.
like he's about to.
good. Oh, Gerger was on it.
No, you know what? He is.
you know what goes around comes around.
It's like Mary Gilbert, right?
What Brett's comment the next day was that, we were talking about it, and Gerger says, I suggested that Kinsey
Was Mr. Ryan there Monday night?
play music and be portable. That's all I gave him. He said, I showed up at the meeting and he's got an iPhone.
Playing hide with his grandpa.
Yes, that was his quote. Like he was like, I said, let's that was about what I said.
Okay.
Really was.
It was longer than it probably needed to be, but the line was well delivered on the melted like a hot ice cream. That's his legacy piece.
All right, at 6 p.m., we'll call this regular village board meeting to order. Earlier this week, we lost a friend to the village and mother of employees and somebody that's been a big contributor. So as we give a moment of silence tonight, please keep the Frankie family in mind. I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, would you take a roll?
Trustee Churchill.
Present.
Trustee Detmers. Here. Trustee Charles.
Present.
Trustee Ferguson.
President.
Trustee Mao.
Here.
Village President Kimsey.
Present. Any public announcements this evening?
Turn that on. Turn that on, Les, will you?
Nice having you do it.
Right. He's been here enough. He ought to.
All right. Les Morgan with the Chatham Veterans Memorial, the Independence Day Committee, and the Military Banners Program. July 4th will be our annual reading of the Declaration of Independence. Would like to get permission to be able to use the park for that event. It'll be on July 4th at this point in time at noon.
You've got it. We have that reserved already.
At the
The
square.
public is invited
At the
at the square, at the Veterans Memorial Park at the Veterans Memorial.
Thank you, Les. Any other public comments on agenda topics? Hearing none, can I have a motion to put the consent agenda on the table?
Make that motion.
Trustee Miles made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Charo. Any discussion or questions regarding the warrants or the minutes? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, would you take the roll?
Trustee Mao,
Yes.
Trustee Ferguson,
Yes.
Trustee Charo,
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Cardinal Ridge letter of credit will stay at old business. Item 1 under new business is a resolution approving an agreement with Central States Fireworks for the 4th of July fireworks. Can I have a motion to bring this?
I'll move.
Trustee Detmers made a motion. To have a second.
Yes, I'll second.
Second by Trustee Ferguson. Fireworks will be held at Community Park July 4th at dusk, which is around 9:30. So we leave it up to the experts to determine it is dark enough to let the show go. So dusk at Community Park. Any discussion?
Do we have an idea, estimation of how long that show would be with the amount they would provide?
Until he runs out.
It's the,
I know in the previous years you had an idea of how long that would turn into. I didn't know if we knew
I
that.
think it's a little short of a half hour.
Okay.
Don't quote that.
Don't quote that.
You're saying
On camera, and I've written it down.
Bring 2 bottles of water.
you can, however long it takes to let all these cakes and
Yeah, I
shells
ran
go.
through those. Yeah. Is that pretty similar to what we've done in years past?
It's exactly.
Exactly. Okay.
So it's however
We
long
add
it
some
lasts.
to it.
We didn't.
Okay.
Because weren't we going to get like a special the last time where they were going to do more the last time?
We didn't quote the same size.
Okay.
Mr. Clerk?
Trustee Charo,
Yes.
Trustee Detmers,
Yes.
Trustee Ferguson,
Yes.
Trustee Mao,
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Item 2 is a resolution approving and authorizing the village to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Springfield Sangamon County Regional Planning Commission for the regional transportation planning and related activities. Motion.
I move.
Trustee Demers made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Churchill. This is our annual agreement with the county and the surrounding communities to fulfill our role in the regional transportation planning program. Discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Clerk?
Trustee Charo,
Yes.
Trustee Detmers,
Yes.
Trustee Ferguson,
Yes.
Trustee Mao,
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Any public comments regarding other village business? Scheduled meetings is Utility Oversight Subcommittee, June 14th at 6, Planning Commission, 6 p.m., June 17th, Village Board, 6 p.m., June 22nd, Public Properties and Recreation Committee, July 12th at 6 p.m., Village Board, 6 p.m. on July 13th, followed by the Committee of the Whole. No need for executive session on the board.
We do have business for Utility Oversight Committee and also the Planning Commission this month. Okay.
We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Charles made a motion, second.
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Ferguson, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting stands adjourned. You have to do stand up for 10 minutes, do you?
Yeah.
Right.
Impromptu.
You can't.
I know.
And the mics are still live. So.
I'd like to begin a story and just.
A lovely lady.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
In the beginning.
No, we're good. We're good.
You had that fun.
We could actually do a story all around. You could say something, you know, it's just.
Oh yeah.
What do they call that?
What was
Not
it?
telephone game. There's another name for it.
Wasn't there a pickleball or something that?
Let's talk about pickleball more.
Yeah.
I haven't heard enough
Yeah,
about
let's all
pickleball.
play. Dewey and I challenge the next two. Thank you for bringing that up. Who's playing us? On the board.
Oh God, I do have a
Oh,
shirt.
you don't
Elected, of the elected officials.
Oh,
Yeah, I've never played.
hey, Dan, you and I will take
Let's
them
go
on.
6 months.
I have a shirt that says Team Brazil.
Oh, how quickly they melt like ice cream on a hot summer day.
Oh no, because when we have a
I've
football
never
tournament,
played. I
we
don't-
made some t-shirts.
As far as I know, you can be playing with actual
I take
pickles, but
responsibility.
I
His
don't
has
know.
a paddle on the ball. So no.
I got
So,
and I said, fine.
I'm gonna wear it anyway. It says Team Brazil.
That's okay.
I challenged you to pickleball. You tried to pull an audible.
Well, we'll have to get matching shirts so we can play.
Have you ever played?
I have never played. I don't need to know the
We
rules.
need 6 months
Do
and
they
then
know the
we'll
rules?
challenge you.
They don't know the rules. They were
Are
the
there
ones that signed up.
They know the rules. It's called their rules.
That's partly true.
Partly, yeah.
What's the other partly to that? Like partly sunny, cats
like-
loud.
It's like those movies based on a true story.
With asterisks, right?
Yeah, how much? It was inspired by.
How much juice is in this juice?
Well, how bad could we possibly be? You
Oh,
just
yeah,
hit a
I'm
little
not
thing
athletic.
across a
And a
net.
little thing across, okay.
Yeah, it's just hit a little thing and cross the net. No big deal.
Then you don't need 6 months.
Oh, we're thinking 6 months.
Go play him tonight.
We're gonna
No.
I'm ready. I've got 3 pounds.
December the 7th. We'll play. Barring no snow.
Good to see.
I'm with
Well,
Greg.
see, I think Greg's on our team. He's our coach.
Yeah.
We do need a coach.
Yeah, he could be our coach.
It's addicting.
Okay, so we got a coach. We're in training.
We're gonna train for 1 month, maybe 2.
How they left it, how.
No, we need 6 months. Trust me. I am not coordinated.
It was bad or not bad or. This is a Cliff Notes version, correct? Cliff Notes?
Did you highlight?
That's part of the problem.
Did you highlight for us?
You wouldn't try to hit us.
We do. I do try to hit people.
I don't know how many.
You.
I've walked out of court with my knuckles bleeding because he hit.
You're that good of an aim?
Yeah.
Like you can hit knuckles? I don't care. I'm still gonna play. I have a shirt.
Effort, eh?
I don't care if I
I
lose.
might take it easy from the
What?
first timers.
Did you say? I didn't hear the L word, did I?
Absolutely.
Oh, no. We're gonna tie their shoestrings together if we have to.
Plays dirty.
Dewey doesn't play dirty, do you?
Not dirty, but
How
I
is it
use the
when you
rules.
hit somebody?
You play dirty, Dewey?
If you get hit with a pickleball, consider it a dead ball. So if I can hit you with it, then there's no chance that you return it. So I try to hit people.
But he's saying it's strategy. I mean, it's.
That's not strategy. That's not strategy.
It's like in basketball, you can foul a shooter on purpose so that he gets free throws, right? Because you don't want him to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same
You want to
concept.
stop the clock. It's just a strategy. Doesn't mean it's wrong.
He brings up basketball because he's 7 foot tall.
Yeah, I see you've been thinking about this, Dewey.
I do have a.
Well, what if we remove that rule?
It has a wingspan
It's
of.
like playing wiffle ball or playing cat ball.
Then
It's like
what?
playing cat ball.
It'd be like moving lights or something. You can't just change the rule.
Yeah, you can. It's like playing
In
cat
an
ball.
exhibition match. Did you watch the Mayweather fight?
What?
Did you watch the Floyd Mayweather fight?
I had family. No, I had my own fight in our house, so it's okay.
It'd be like that, like me just beating you up.
Yeah, Dewey, you keep talking. We're gonna have to do a
Basketball
nice
or
little bet on it.
football?
Yeah, you just keep talking.
I'm down. I'm down.
Just gonna remove that.
December 7th.
What? Isn't that deep?
Placement. You can place it. It's. If you can do speed, that's fine as long as you can get it in.
It's Pearl Harbor. This is December 7th.
Oh, it is. No, it's
Oh, yeah.
I mean, actually, that's more than what you're supposed to do. Is
we can.
if you watch any of the championship games, it's that all.
Pat,
It's
we should
Yeah.
just
until someone decides to speed it up. And then that's when it goes pretty quick.
We're Veterans Day.
That's
Do we not know?
yeah,
I don't know, but I saw somebody.
4 6 months.
No.
Yes, I didn't notice. 'Cause
I will not play in December.
Do you need me to set up a time? All my times I could do tomorrow. You got somebody else.
I'm coming in Thursday at,
It's Friday night, so I don't know.
But she's doing 3 o'clock by herself.
you can come in with me
Or
if you want.
however you want to do it.
I'd rather do it tomorrow.
Okay. Anytime.
Okay.
Nothing scheduled.
I'll look at the calendar again.
It's at 3, right? Is it 3? Because I forgot to put it in my calendar.
Yeah, I'll look at it. How long is it gonna take?
All depends. I can be done in 15 minutes or you can go on for 2 hours.
Okay.
Depends on how many questions you ask.
I set aside 15 minutes for that. 2 hours for dues. Somewhere between that.
More like
What about me, Pat?
Planning on you not.
You've been through this so many times, you used to go, yeah, it's good to me.
I was not expecting that response. I was expecting 5 hours.
5 hours?
No, I was expecting you to say, yeah, it's gonna be along with you.
We've even simplified it to, it's about 3 or 4 sheets.
We'll give you a paper towel.
Oh, okay.
And explains it.
That was all. 20 minutes.
We're switching over to a thing called, whatever it is. We're switching so that we'll put the budget in this year.
We don't have any closed session, right? You don't know of any reason for closed session, right? None of them are solved.
And we're running into a few little problems of putting that in there. So sure, before that we weren't able to do presentations. What I went on is the last year of the employees.
I don't know why that's.
So I think it'll be perfect. So you guys tell me what you think when we get in there. I think it's simplified. It makes for more sense.
Okay. Matt, you ready?
I'll tell you my question. I'll keep
I was thinking about making a scene here. Rush good.
I can't tell him he can't put it on the property line, but he should be in agreement.
It's falls, it's not right where it always.
It was all that fun with the teachers over there, right?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for waiting until 6:15 where we can start the committee of the whole meeting. Mr. Clerk, if I could have a roll call, please.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Ferguson.
Here.
Trustee Charles.
Present.
Chairman Detmers.
Here.
Trustee Churchill.
Here.
Great. Are there any public comments regarding agenda topics? Seeing none, we'll move into old business, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the prior meeting?
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Mao, seconded by trustee Charles. All those in favor, are there any discussion? Sorry. I'll get it eventually. No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
All any opposed? So there's no old business. Moving on to new business for the CMT engineering updates.
Jim called me with a couple things. The bidding for the repairs for Oak Brook Avenue should be led a week from this coming Tuesday. Okay. And CMT has submitted for review the documentation for Plummer Boulevard overlay using the Rebuild Illinois funds. So we should know back on that.
Where would that go in Plummer?
We would overlay from Ptarmigan to Route 4, and then from Route 4 to the beginning of the viaduct.
Okay.
That's great. And you said that was with IDOT for approval? That's where
They have to submit the program there to make sure that qualifies for the Rebuild Illinois funds. If it does, we'll get the notice back.
They don't rip that up, what they've been doing?
They grind it. Yeah.
Okay.
Great update. I had just one item. There was a concern on Dewberry Drive about some sidewalks that hadn't been completed in that subdivision. I didn't know if you had a chance to look into that.
I did. I looked it up, and at least the piece that you talked about is not done. I'm not sure if there's other pieces along there. But then I pulled the last letter of credit reduction that we had done, and they still have a letter of credit out there for $19,900 for items that need to be done. Now, sure, some of that stuff has been done because most of the homes have filled out in those lots. So I'll have Jim go back through and review and come up with a number. I doubt very much we can ask for the whole $19,900, but we can get enough to be able to finish any of the other stuff that's in there.
Okay, great.
I have a question. If you're doing the engineering updates and stuff, I'm concerned we received, or everybody that's on the, I think, ELR system thing received a notice about the stuff going on at the water plant and the delay of. The only reason I have a concern is, in the past we've been told soon, given dates, and then those dates have been skipped over. So should we be concerned that again, there's a delay? And do we trust that a week from now they're gonna do what they say they are, or is it gonna jump again?
When I was told of this, they said, "Are you okay with it?" I said, "I am never going to say I'm okay with delaying switching to chloramines." But the reason that they want to delay this is the Sangamon County Fair is going on that week. What we'll have is our tower and our ground storage tank will be full of water that's chlorine. When they start to switch over to chloramines, we'll need to use down the water in those two tanks before we start taking chloramine in, because they actually fight with each other. But we do not want to have a ground storage tank and above ground tank that's full of something with nothing in it. So the plan, they're not sure how much water the fair will use. So they would prefer to wait till the week after the fair is over to do this. So they notified us of that, and then I put that alert out. So it was at the request of New Berlin and the Sangamon County Fair.
Any other comments on engineering updates?
You may not know this, Ben. I don't know if they said anything to you. Within that notice, it talks about the fish. Do you know why that was a specific concern that they went? Because I've had some people ask why.
I think people that have the exotic fish, they have to treat their water no matter what.
Right.
But that treatment that they do to that water, I'm not exactly sure if there's a certain process, if it's chlorine, or if it's a certain process, if it's chloramines. So we try to let the people know on that. The other thing that they said is if someone is
Dialysis.
Yeah, on dialysis,
Right.
which I don't think we have any places in Chatham that do dialysis. So.
It is. I looked it up. So a fish can't handle either disinfectant, but you have to change your treatment.
Right. I figured the pH level would be different, and so that necessitate.
Random stuff.
And believe it or not, the apple barn in the past can tell the difference when some of those pH levels, because the water that they use to water the plants
Sure.
changes the colors on them. So,
I'm sure.
yeah.
Hydrangeas.
Any other comments? Engineering? Next item under new business is the SEMA Emergency Operation Plan. Presentation by Trent Thompson.
Better. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Trent Thompson. For some of you that have met me before, you know who I am, but for those that are new or I'm new to them, I'm Director of Emergency Management. And so today's brief, what I want to do for you is provide you an update of where we're at on developing the Village of Chatham's Emergency Operation Plan. Presentation will be, can you put that in presentation form, please? So I have the presentation that'll be up on the board now, trying to move out of the way so people can look at that. But I've also provided you with a slide deck, and then I've provided you with a copy of the current draft as where we're at as of today of the EOP. It's a pretty lengthy document, so I don't print off a lot of those, but I thought, well, you might want to have that in front of you just so you can reference it. It's good reading material, so hopefully next month when we have the quiz, you guys will be ready for that. Okay. So next slide, please. Go ahead and hit it. So these are the 4 major bullet points of why, or what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about why we want to have an emergency operation plan for the village. We'll look at the key elements of our particular plan. Before I do that, though, I'll talk about key elements that are expected from federal guidance and other regulatory documents so that you can see that what we're putting in our plan itself match or meet those requirements. And I'm going to talk about how we got here, which was a pretty significant coordinated event with a lot of different people over several months of activities. So, and from there, we'll talk about our way ahead. Next slide. So why do we have an EOP? Well, I've only listed what I have there, 6 different regulatory or guidances we receive from the state or the feds. And when I actually listed every one of them, it was 2 or 3 slides. I was real surprised of all the different avenues that require an entity to have an emergency operation plan so that they can have other portions like EPA with our water. We had to write a water plan, but we had to also say that we were developing an EOP, otherwise they wouldn't approve our water plan. So next slide, or next one, I'm sorry, thank you, is about accreditation or certification. So across the state of Illinois, there are several communities that are accredited. All 102 counties are required to be certified. We, as a smaller entity, we will probably not ever have a chance to be accredited. The state of Illinois, actually, it was 2012, and the last community was St. Charles, Illinois, that was accredited or as a community with the EOP. And what does that do for you, really? We might receive a little bit of funding if we become accredited, if we were to get that far, but we're talking probably less than $1,000 a year. And that was actually going to be money that would come away from the county's share of the money. So that's kind of the biggest reason the state pulled away from accrediting the communities, is because it was taken away from the county's capabilities. Next. NIMS compliant. Well, that does help. National Incident Management System and the Incident Command System. I'll talk about that again in a little bit, but it does help to have an EOP in place because it shows your compliance with the National Incident Management System. Next. If the disaster is a catastrophic proportion, we qualify for federal aid, which is a very high mark to reach. But if we qualify for federal aid, having an EOP puts us in the loop for getting federal reimbursement for the costs that we incurred during the response and recovery. Next, the big one here is, will it help reduce or prevent loss of life and property? And absolutely. From the work we do to develop the EOP and then the future of training, educating, exercising, that's why it makes it easier for us to respond together, work together, and be prepared for whatever could be thrown at us with the disaster. Next, please. Go ahead and just throw a few of those up there. This is kind of talking about the composition of a standard EOP. You'll have functional base type EOPs. They'll have functional annexes. And what that means is going by the function of the community. What is your core capability to perform? So law enforcement, fire services, EMS, emergency management, and healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. The base plan will have those standard inputs to it. And then there'll be hazard, threat, incident specific annexes for us. And I'll talk about those 5 when we get to the next slide. We have 5 specific annexes for our EOP. Next. And here we are with what our EOP is laid out, the document you have in front of you. We give the situation. Before we start EOP, we have to do a hazard and threat analysis. Why are we putting together EOP if we don't know what those threats or hazards are to us? So for us, we've narrowed down to our 5 significant concerns for the village of Chatham. Severe weather, of course, tornado, derecho comes in. How often has it happened? Seldom, but in the last few years, we've had one that's come through just outside of Auburn, and then Taylorville got hit. So it is happening in this area, and we got to look at a bigger area of possibility. Hazardous material incident, whether we have to have an evacuation or a shelter in place. We have a lot of rail, we have a lot of freight on the roads, and there's several different locations within the community that have some what I call ethyl methyl nasty. So if something would go wrong with that, it could cause some problems for us. Cyber attack, we always, in this world, in this day of age, cyber has to be a concern for us, maybe not directly towards us, but it could impact higher up or higher entities that it trickles down and affects our capabilities to do our business. Infectious disease pandemic, before COVID, I wouldn't have thought about putting that on there, but we've managed to get through the COVID, and now we have a pretty good document that talks about, our activities if we have another pandemic. Now, the others that I put on there for acknowledgement, that was brought up from the group of folks that I'll talk about in a little bit here that I've been working with to develop this plan. We have down aircraft. It has happened. Is it something that is of significance that could raise us to a catastrophic event? Possibly. How often or how frequent could it happen? Probably rather seldom. The active shooter, we're not going to put anything in our document about active shooter. Bottom line is all of our active shooter planning is tactical. This document you have in front of me is strategic. And we want to keep it at the strategic level because in the EOC, when you'll see how we'll lay this room out, we're only giving the support to the tactics, as I see Chief Foley in the back here, to the tacticians that are on the ground. And then finally, it comes to some of our severe weather, cold and heat. They're short-term events, so they're really, in my opinion, rather easy to handle. And we have actually laid the groundwork for some capabilities in that place. Okay, some planning assumptions. We have 2 primary. We can handle most emergency functions, most. But if we do have the disaster of significance or catastrophic levels, we are going to be overwhelmed quickly, and we're going to have a lot of resources show up in our back door. So those are our 2 big assumptions. There's several others, but those are the 2 I want to highlight for you. Concept of operations, I've already mentioned we will use the National Incident Command System and the National Incident Management System. What that provides is a common language amongst all entities of response, and it also provides us with a framework that keeps our responsibilities lined up and our command and control lined up. There we go. Thank you. This is in your copy of the EOP as well as in your slides. These are just the 4 levels of disaster and how we look at those from normal operations all the way to catastrophic. And as you can see there, it would be a disaster significance level 3 that we'd probably activate our emergency operations center. Next. Continuing, we have a lot of mutual aid support programs, as I mentioned, with all those resources. We've listed them in our EOP, and we have a copy of each one of those in a file, so that if we do have an event, it'll be quick phone calls to see a lot of resources come to help us and make sure that our response is in a timely manner. I already mentioned about incident command, but I did not say unified command. For us, we will focus on a unified command effort, meaning that, for instance, our 2 big ones, fire and PD, they're going to be working together in a command format, working with each other, coordinating, and making joint decisions on where we go and how we go forward with our tactical. And then our communications, I can tell you on a sidebar, if anybody wants to ask me more about comms, I can say we have built, or we are building a very redundant system throughout the village of Chatham. There's a lot of details that we can get into offline. There's just a lot of the technical stuff that I could bring my guy in that can talk it all. Next. Okay, these are two key, the reason they're in red, I believe in your copy of the EOP, I may have left them in red type. But these are two significant points that I want to make sure you see in the EOP and understand how that works. The first one has to do with if the village president is not around, is not available, or off on one of his vacations to Hawaii. Or was that Chief Foley that went to Hawaii? The chair of the committee of the whole then will assume responsibility of general direction of emergency response strategies according to the CEOP until such a time as the board of trustees is able to name a successor. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, and then the second one, this one was pretty important for us. As of right now, if we had a disaster, we would have to have a meeting, call to order a meeting of this group, give you 24-hour notice to get permission to move forward with some of our response capabilities because we don't have the funding or authority to spend the money. With this clause or with this paragraph in our EOP, this provides us the opportunity to purchase or spend funding that will allow us to move forward. When I have, for an example, debris removal, we could have one truckload that could be as much as $12,000 for one truck. When we clear debris from a tornado, you'll see 20, 30, 40 truckloads go out within hours, trying to get all that out of the way so we can take care of the business. That adds up pretty quick, and we have to wait for a board and have to calculate a $200,000 to $300,000 expense before we can even start working on it. So you can see why it's important for us to move forward. Next. And then we have some annexes with functional and hazard specific, the map sets. This was an idea that Pat and I talked about, and so what we have done, and Pat is working on this for us, but we are building a map, and we're going to have about, is it 7 or 8 maps, Pat? And they're going to be population focused. So on a typical school day, what does our population look like? Well, we captured what that population looks like within the high school, the middle school, all the different schools, and we're going to have them on the map. So they're going to give us little blots of, oh, this is a concern. This tornado just came through this specific area, and there might be 650 people in that school alone if we didn't get them out of there in time. So that's going to help us understand better what kind of focus we have to have with our response. So these map sets are going to be built up, and we'll be able to display those, and we can be looking at those right away. I mean, it covers all different times of the year, times of day. So we have several of them that's going to really help us with our response and focusing the areas of concern. And then finally, you'll see on the bottom, in the last few pages, like locations of interest, predetermined temporary shelter locations. We also have predetermined staging areas, predetermined volunteer management sites, and the big one is a predetermined donations management site. If you have ever gone to a disaster, the second disaster you have when you go to disaster is all the overload of donations that you'll receive from across the communities around you. It gets to be very challenging. Next. So how did we get to where we're at with this? I call it the coordinated effort. You can just go ahead and just start popping up all the names up there of everybody that's been part of this process. There we go. All the way down to our faith-based organizations. So far, I've met with 4 of our local churches. I have 2 more that are waiting to get me some dates and times. And of those, 4 of them said they could be a shelter, a temporary shelter for us, or it could be a warming center in the winter or a cooling center in the summer if one of our facilities has problems. So it's been pretty impressive. And they also say, you know, I've got a lot of farmers. And so if you do need any help, they got a lot of equipment and they can make things happen. So it's a good resource to reach out to. So what's the way ahead? We got to just finish this up, get your signatures, and then walk away? Absolutely not. Go ahead. First, I'm going to get all those folks I talked to. Up to this point, I think we've had 3 or 4 meetings, 5 or 6. Never capture a signature until we have a document ready to go. But now I'll start going back, capturing signatures from each one of those entities, getting their, not necessarily their approval, but their acknowledgement that they've been part of this document and they concur with it. From there, we will start to communicate and educate in the village proper, talking to our employees, having training exercises and opportunities for them. And then we go into exercises. We'll do tabletop, I call it a tabletop discussion to start. So we don't want to have anybody come in and fail miserably on our first exercise because they didn't have an idea of how we're going to roll. But we'll do exercises up to the point, hopefully within, we're talking maybe a year and a half before we can do a full scale or maybe at least a functional exercise because they're pretty intense. And then from each one of those exercises, and every time we train this, we will update the plan and start it all over. And that, folks, is your emergency operation plan for the village. Are there any questions?
Quite impressive.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you for all your work on it.
I have a question. Okay. So, and this is just me being, several years ago as a kid, I remember we had earthquakes. We had 2 back-to-back earthquakes here in Chatham. And I notice in your situation area here, you don't list that as being so close to the New Madrid Fault as we are. I'm surprised that's not one of your, or maybe that's included in something else, but.
I can actually talk on that, believe it or not. So before I was with the village, I was working for the State of Illinois Emergency Management Agency, and I was part of the Central United States Earthquake Consortium. And that was a consortium of about 7 or 8 states around that are in that New Madrid zone. We also had, so when we would meet regularly, and we spent a lot of time with the science folks. And when we were done, the science folks were showing us the maps and the liquefaction of the ground and how things would be absorbed. And yes, we may feel slight tremors, but that's about the max we could probably feel, even if we had a 7.4 or greater down on the New Madrid. So we are in that area that we should feel some shaking. I mean, we could feel it, and there may be things that rattle off your desk or whatever. But as far as the significant damage, it'd be very little. Is that my understanding?
That's good to know. I had no idea.
Great job.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yes, sir.
Offline, I've got something on the overall bigger document for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Trent.
All right, the third item under new business is the village manager update.
I'm gonna have Ryan go first. He's gonna give you an update on the zoning hearing he had a couple weeks ago.
Ryan, you want this stuff up?
Let's go to, can we go to the county zoning map and show me more detail of what is?
Oh, you want that? So like the village map.
Open up a web browser and then type up there.
Sorry to
parcel
do this to
viewer.
you. I did it to you the other night
Yeah.
too, didn't I?
Parcel.
Viewer.
Okay.
And that's it right there. Hit OK. You're somewhere on the west side of Springfield, so hand that up. Yeah. That's round 4. Panther, Piper.
Right.
Maybe 2 Fighters, Chapman.
We're down in here.
10493 South Main.
Isn't it right there?
Okay.
While they're doing that, we started. Mr. Marty Morris came in on May 13th, and we had a zoning board of appeals public hearing for his request for a zoning variance. He filled out his petition, and I had Pat come to me earlier today. Did everybody see it on Word Docs? Could they read the whole?
Yeah.
The whole PDF, because I guess there was an issue or something where he brought it up one time and like some of the pages weren't copied properly or something. So anyway, so what Mr. Morris wants to do, he had petitioned the zoning board to build a accessory building or a garage on his property, and he wanted to, and I'll show you here on the map.
Is this it?
Is that South Main Street?
Yeah.
Okay, go up, go north. Keep going, keep going. Right there, that's good.
124.
So Mr. Morris lives on the corner of El Camino Real and South Main Street here. He wants to build an accessory building back here in his rear yard with access off of El Camino Real right here. The zoning information that I have, the most current zoning information says that we must maintain a 20-foot setback from the property line for any structures built on a corner lot, okay, any accessory structures. So that would put his building back here basically in line with the side of the house. So with that said, when I went out there and met with him one day and we were looking at this, and he has this massive amount of road right of way between where he would have to have the setback of his accessory building and where the edge of the street would meet his driveway. So he asked me about putting the accessory building 13 feet closer, or 13 feet off the property line, which would be 7 feet inside of that 20-foot setback line, and that's what he petitioned the Zoning Board of Appeals for. And now they approved the initial zoning board hearing to allow that, because of one of the reasons being he's going to have so much extra concrete to get to a building back here rather than having it 7 feet closer to the street. Does that make sense? Is there any questions?
Was there any opposition to any of the neighbors?
I did have one neighbor questioned this only because that person was more interested in what was going to happen out here on Jack Mohan's property, even though it's a farm field. But I mean, obviously we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know, what's going to happen in 10 years, 20 years.
But she didn't have any opposition to the structure?
No, she did not. So, in looking at this, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but, to build a neighborhood in here, you'd have to do something with this waterway. I don't know if there's going to be a house right here. I don't know. So, that's where we left it.
If you played that out, if that road continued and that was developed, would that be an issue in the future?
I don't think it would be, because what he is allowing himself to do is actually, if he has it 7 feet closer than what our zoning book says, he still would be able to have a car parked in front of his new building and still be have enough room that if you added a sidewalk there at some point in time, it would not hamper the sidewalk or be an issue.
Yeah, that's what I see in the document. It still allow for the sidewalk and be past it.
The only thing I think you would, this house faces towards South Main. This house faces towards El Camino. If the road went down here and there was enough to add just one more house and there was another road here, those houses could face that other road. But if they are going to face this, then you're going to have a garage lined up with fronts of houses. Is that where you were going?
Yeah, just trying to foresee,
Brian, is there any tile or drainage pipes back there that these changes or the building of that shed will disturb or put water on?
No, there's just a grass ditch right here, which is just maintained, it maintains the flow out into this waterway. So what he'll do is he'll get with Barry Dees and we'll get him the right, Barry will recommend a proper size pipe, which we were thinking 12 to 18 inches, to keep the water flowing, because that's where it goes anyway.
Yeah.
So
there's no tiles in the back there that would be broken?
not that I know. I mean, there could be old farm tiles from 100 years ago, but those are all over the place. But we do know that water does flow, in this area here. So.
And you're just putting a normal slab for a garage, correct? There'll be a small footing underneath of it.
Yeah, small footing, because I like to do a heated floor.
How deep then you think? Foot and a half?
The new monolithic slab, you know, we passed that ordinance, a few months ago. I think it has to be 6 inches or 8 inches deep on the edge only. So it sounds like if you're gonna do a heated floor, you might wanna go thicker concrete for the entire floor, so.
But he shouldn't get down to any kind of clay tiles.
Okay.
No, that wouldn't be.
'Cause that was my only concern is
They'd be deeper than that.
when we start breaking tile, then you start having bigger issues.
No, this would not have, no, it would not be that deep. Are there any other questions?
I don't think so. I don't have any.
Do we,
Yep. So do we have a consensus to move this? Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Well, are you done or are you still, did you have more stuff
No,
to?
that was all I had.
Okay, now I have a question for Ryan if he's up here. Can I ask it or not?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I haven't heard an update, and I think some of the newer board members would be interested too. Where are we, or what is the plan or the track for the temple? Have you talked to those guys lately? Are we on track? Are we?
They're pretty much on track. They're slowing down a little bit, I think. You know, the moment that we've got into this issue with materials becoming so expensive, but they're still working. I mean, it's still going on. We haven't done an inspection over there for a little bit because they're kind of in between that, you know, that rough-in phase and that finalization phase on the first building. Because there's actually going to be 2 buildings. Okay.
I think they're scheduling their grand opening, so.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
Is there any discussion about this zoning ordinance? This zoning amendment, I should say. Variance. Or do we have a consensus to bring this forth to the regular village board meeting? All you in? Yep.
Yep.
Greg, will you write an ordinance for that?
So 2 weeks, that final ordinance will be up for a vote, for final approval.
He doesn't need to show up, does he?
No, I don't think. Has anybody had any questions for that?
Let's give him the option.
Well, but at our next board meeting, which will be 2 weeks from today, they'll have the ordinance that gives the final approval.
I thank you all for your time.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Pat, did you have any other items?
I had a couple other items. We've been negotiating back and forth on the union contracts. I think we're very, very close on both of them, and we are scheduling meetings next week to try to get those tentatively agreed to and be able to bring back to the board and show you exactly what we got. And this was the first month that we went back to shutoffs for late payment. We shut off 123 residences, and as of today at 4 o'clock, there was 9 still off. So
There was some concern or comments online that there was no notification offered to those folks that were shut off. I don't know if you could speak to that, but again, I know that sometimes we have difficulties contacting folks, but this seemed to be an inordinate amount of concern shared. I don't know if you heard anything from your end.
I heard of 2 instances. In both cases, they were long-term residents of the village, and when they signed up for utilities, the phone number that they gave us then is different than the phone number that they have now. So when it went to dial them, it dialed the old number. Both of those have been rectified, and that shouldn't be the case going forward. And if anybody did show up on the do not call list, if they want to call and make sure, if they didn't get a phone call, please call the office, let the girls know what's the proper number to get a hold of them.
Mm-hmm. And did the shutoffs occur at the time that they normally would have if this hadn't been kind of interrupted due to COVID? Because I think there was some talk of, it's due on the 1st, that we shut off on the 15th type of thing. Did it occur sooner than it normally would have?
No. Your due date's the 15th. The board give 5 days without putting a penalty on. And then the penalties start on that 5th or the 6th day. Around that time is when the phone calls go out. to let people know that you haven't paid yet, that you're on the list to be shut off. That's usually
21st or so of a month.
yeah, around there. And then we lately have not been shutting off at the end of the month. We've been waiting until the beginning of the next month. If it's if there's a holiday there, they'll hold off and do it on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and we do not shut off people on Fridays. So I think they did the first week of June. We're into the second week of June, and of those 123, it's down to 9 now.
Okay, and then my last comment, obviously before everyone else's, was, if the shut off occurs, let's say at noon on a Tuesday, and the folks are at work, they get home at 5 o'clock and they realize that their power's been shut off, and then they go, oh man, I forgot about the bill. What's the proper procedure, and is there any opportunity for them to get their utilities turned back on that evening?
There is not. If you get a hold of the girls in the office before they close at 4:15, then your name goes on the list to get turned back on that night. If you pay online after 4:15, there's no way for our staff to know that happened. They can call and tell the dispatchers that, but the dispatchers aren't in charge of dealing with utility bills. So if you get shut off, you need to get a hold of the office before 4:15 so you can get on the list to get turned back on if you're going to wait to pay on the day that you get shut off.
What time typically do the shutoffs occur in that day? Like if I would have an issue if it got shut off at 4 o'clock and we close the office at 4:15, that type of thing. So is there ample opportunity within that day?
123, we did them probably over 3 days. We can't get to everybody in one day.
Okay.
We do a manageable amount so that we go out, shut them off, then they come in and pay, and we go back out and turn them on. I had a person call. He thought that all we had to do was just push a button back here at the office and it would automatically turn them on. I wish we had that technology. I really, really wish we had that technology, but we do not. It takes physical of the people in the office to look to see if that person actually has paid their total bill. Then they notify our electricians that are waiting to go back out and turn them on.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that almost immediately.
Yeah, immediately being the following day, if it's after.
If it's after 4, if you get in there and get your name on the list by 4:15, if they have to turn 100 on that night,
they work through.
They will work through and turn people on that night. That's our promise.
Right. I don't know if you guys have any other comments or questions, concerns.
So after the grace period, so there's that first call, that's the 5 days, and then there's a second phone call as well, right?
This time, we think we got the bugs worked out of the phone system, and they actually sent calls out twice to people.
Do you know if we've changed the outpulsing caller ID to?
I think we did. I do not know that for a fact, but I know that was something that we requested.
Well, they leave a message, don't they?
They do.
Yeah, I had heard rumors that some people didn't receive a message. So it's one of those things that's difficult to trace back. And I think last time this came up, we looked at call logs and tried to identify things. And, obviously I want to be cognizant of those folks and families that, they can't go at night without electricity. So just want to make sure we can do everything we can to get them back.
The other thing we want to make sure too is if there's anybody that has any kind of medical reason from a doctor that they can't be shut off, they please notify the office and bring in a copy of that letter from the doctor. And then if you're on the shut off list, you will not get shut off.
Can we put a reminder in the bills that go out? That if
There is a reminder on the bottom of the bill.
But I mean, if you've changed your phone number or if you need to do anything like that, is there a reminder on the
I'm not sure if that's on there, but I know that I told the girls that anytime they interact with any customers to always verify that they have the latest phone number. So if you call in to talk to them about branches or anything else, I want them to ask them at that time, what's the best phone number for us to get a hold of you? So then they update it in the system right then. it's been working. But in this instance, we had two people that had had a shut off in 30 years. So
That's what I was saying, because, you know, we've not interacted with them at all. So if we've changed our number, they would have no way of knowing.
Exactly.
And I might not remember, but if you put it at the bottom of the bill, when I got the bill to pay, it might be, oh yeah, I need to update that number.
I'll check to see if it's on there.
You could add it to the website as well, because a lot of people pay online. For
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions for Pat? Fourth item under new business is the Public Properties and Recreations Committee. We haven't met since our previous Committee of the Whole meeting, so there's no new items there. We are again looking to revise the ordinance that governs that, and I've put drafts to the PPRC to make sure that my suggested changes were in line with their expectations. The fifth item under new business is Utility Oversight Committee discussion. I don't know if you have anything, Paul.
We have not met since the last time as well. There is one scheduled next Monday. Normally, they're on the Monday prior to this meeting so that we have that meeting and then can discuss that here. But it's next Monday. As Pat mentioned, there's stuff on there. I know there's the previous item with the water plan going forward to discuss with the attorney. It's one item, but that's for next week.
Great. And it's my understanding that that Utility Oversight Committee definitely could use some more members. So I don't know if there's any board members that are interested or any folks from the public that might be interested in joining that commission. Please reach out to Pat and send your letter of interest.
I'll gladly be on that.
And I know Chairman Gertner of that committee has had some discussions with interested people and has encouraged that. So I would also make sure you've talked to him as well.
Was Ryan on that?
He was.
Need a trustee.
Right.
So it's Brett and you and Paul Packelhofer. Anybody else?
Dan Lewis, a community member.
Or you do need a trustee still, because it was 3, right?
But there's so few members on that committee that if
one of them
people miss, then
You don't have quorum.
yeah.
Yep. So is there a size that we're hoping to get to? 7, 8, 20?
It's set at 5.
Set at 5? And 3 of which are trustees?
And one of those is vacant, so you do need a trustee.
Okay. So I don't know how that process works, but Trustee Mouse offered his name up, so I don't know.
Filling that trustee spot will help a lot.
So Chairman Gerger, he's the chair of that committee?
You need to appoint it, but that would need to be, this one's set by the.
Matt, if you can officially send me an email requesting it, then
I'll do that.
that way it'll follow the rules.
Yep.
And again, anybody else that might be interested, whether you're watching this online or you're here tonight, please submit your letter of interest to Pat. Are there any public comments regarding village business not on the agenda?
I want to go back to the Public Property and Recreation Committee discussion.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I brought up the last meeting, just to be clear, I brought up the summer rec program. And that I wanted to be clear, I don't know if I was clear about it before, when I said that the board didn't eliminate it. It was put out there that the board didn't. There is not a program this summer, but that was not a discussion had at the village board. So I want to make sure that that's clear, that that was not a village board discussion. That was not something that the village board decided. So I want to make sure that that was clear. Personally, I think there should be a program, and I hope that that's a discussion that we have.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Trustee Ferguson and I spoke as well about the need for summer opportunities for kids and how to best affect that. So I hope that we have those conversations as well.
And I know you just mentioned you're going to draft different items with the Public Property and Recreation Committee. I know it's on there that it's the role of that committee to review annually the summer recreation program. So is that going to still be the plan going forward? Because I know that didn't happen this year.
Right. No, I think that plans that are presented to that board, it should be reviewed by that board. And that is one of their goals, is to not oversee, but to review and to provide comments back to the village board about the summer rec program. So yeah, I think I did make that section, I drafted that section more generically, that it should review all types of programs similar to that, not just that specific one. But yeah, that would be my intent, that the Public Properties Commission still is involved in that. I know that it seeks, volunteers and tries to look for funding as well. So I'm very much wishing for the Public Properties Commission to be involved in any summer rec program that occurs.
But it makes sense that they would collaborate at least and know what's going on so that they don't overlap in other areas.
Yeah, I think that, my opinion is that the summer rec program has had a number of changes over the last five or so years that has significantly impacted, it's the way that it operates. And I think it would be good for us to go back and reevaluate that plan and write something that works in today's environment. So anybody that wants to have those conversations, please reach out to me and I can try to help facilitate them.
I definitely like to see us move forward on some kind of plan. Maybe not going back to what we were, but at least look forward and offer something for the kids.
Any further on the public properties or anything else so far? Again, back to item number 6, public comments on village business outside of the agenda.
Well, this is sort of outside the agenda, sort of not. I know that different meetings you had a lot of discussions on utilities during the pandemic and the late fees and no turn-offs, this and that and the other. My recollection does not remember it being kept at the 10% late fee. And I would like that question answered if you would. I mean, you don't have to answer it tonight, but is it still at the 10%? For some reason, I thought that it went to 5.
Yeah.
The pandemic was over and everything went back to where it was.
I know that there were several discussions about the percentage as well as whether or not we offer payment plans and those types of things. So Pat, I don't know if you have that information off the top of your head, but do you know what our late fee penalty is today?
I think it's 10%.
Okay. And do we offer payment plans?
We do. And we have 12-month plans and then the one that, so you came up with a 12-month plan, and I think what Brett had, was it 6?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it the other way around?
Yeah.
Well, we have them both, and we have people on both of them right now. So.
And whether it's 6 or 12 was dependent upon how much you owed? Is that, I forget the exact delineation, but I know that it got confusing there where our plans were kind of competing with one another, which wasn't the intent, but so it sounds like it's still at 10% late fees.
It's gone back to 10.
I'm unaware of.
I think the one expired, and when it expired, it went back to 10%.
That's what I understood.
Right. Yeah.
Is that once it expired, everything went back to as it was before.
I know that during the pandemic, a couple of trustees did some research to try to understand what the standard penalty was with reference to communities around us. Like I know I called Sherman and Rochester, and they were all around the 10% range as well. I know I have those notes. But I think during the pandemic, I had been discussing 5 or 3%. So several other percentages were discussed, but it sounds like the 10% is what the default went back to, along with these payment plans for 12 or 6 months.
And I know we talked about that, and I called 2 other, and I can't remember which ones they were, but I know I called 2 others that were separate than yours, and they were both 10% as well, right?
It sounded pretty standard. I think we were just trying to coordinate and hit as many towns as we could, and there were no large variances. I think 15% I remembered one being, but
if you guys remember, we eliminated the $50 turn on fee. So if we go back out and turn somebody on, we don't charge them an additional $50.
Right. I do recall that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
One other thing, I don't remember, I thought Pat said that you had a one-time grace on being late. In other words, you would be forgiven if it had been the only time in 30 years that you had not paid your bill, that you would be forgiven the late fee.
No, there were people that were asking that we do that online, and from what my staff was telling me, and I don't think that's ever come up. The one thing that they do is going through the Utilities Oversight Committee. If you have a high bill and water usage and you can't figure out where that usage came from, we have waived that in the past. But I think that's the only thing.
Yeah, one-time leak forgiveness, I think.
Yeah, you get to use it once every 3 years or 5 years or whatever it is, yeah. But
Well, the only reason I remember it is because about 30 years ago, I did go on vacation and I did not pay my bill. And when I came back, of course, you know, you realize that and you pay it. I said, oh, well, that would have been nice if I had known that 30 years ago. That's the only reason I knew.
And she hasn't been on vacation for 30 years.
She schedules it around them.
Years, but I've not missed paying my bill.
there you go.
She schedules it around the
We appreciate
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I know that things like that come up. Every family goes through those times, but the more we use the automatic payments, I think the better it is for the staff and obviously the smoother things go in the past. So if you're able to do that, please elect for those automatic payments and try to remember to update your cards as you get new ones. Are there any other comments regarding village business now on the agenda?
I know with that, we do auto, and I know I got like a notice that my credit card was going to expire. So go in and update it. I don't know if, and that was a separate notice, and that because otherwise I don't really
Did you
notice.
get that for the village?
It was an email.
Wow.
It was.
I didn't know our system had the ability to do that. So.
It was so that was a nice thing. So I know that works, and I was able to do that ahead of time. It wasn't an after effect that failed or something like that. It was proactive.
It wasn't from a foreign prince.
No. I've got $1 million coming.
Trent will tell you about the
Cyber attacks.
cyber attacks.
That's kind of strange that our utility billing will do that, but Apple won't tell you that. You know, when you're.
Yeah. So no, that was a nice feature.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Any other public comments? All right, I'll move to the schedule of meetings. The Committee of the Whole will meet 6:15 Municipal Hall, July 13th. I don't believe there's any reason for a closed session, so I would accept the motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Trustee Mao, Trustee Charles. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thanks everyone for coming.